locked up in jail when they've caused no wrong or harm to another man or woman? You need to understand the magnitude of this. Every single case that involved a man or a woman being taken down by the state or crown attorneys is all voided because it was in the wrong jurisdiction. It should have been in the jurisdiction of common law, the law of the land for man and woman. Instead, it was in the jurisdiction of the sea, and they've placed upon you this person that they acted through to fool you, right? To provide all these wonderful benefits and privileges and services that they're offering to you when you weren't supposed to ever know who you were. So stop and think about that. That's where the remedy is here, because we're talking about this has happened to all of us, Scott. It's happened to every man and woman. We've all been paying taxation when you realize, oh my God, McDonald's went and created a corporation in my name, and they've been sending me bills all this time, and I've been thinking it's me, and I've been paying for it. It's called constructive fraud. What if McDonald's did that, right? And they kept sending me bills every year saying, you owe us X amount of dollars for a debt that you owe through taxation. Would I pay that? No, I'd be laughing at them. Give me a break, McDonald's. I don't have a contract with you. Produce the obligation. Where is it? Or people at McDonald's have to come into open court and claim that I'm property. That's the only way they can administrate in this capacity over me. It doesn't exist.
Has anybody ever walked in with this methodology of approaching these crimes and actually succeeded?
Yes, actually, it's what happens is that, for example, like I said, we could talk for hours, but Carl Lentz truly is, as far as I'm concerned, he's a gift to God for this world. And what he did for not only the people in England when he was there, but also for the people in the United States. And they just don't know who this man is. He keeps himself back. I guess he doesn't want to step up into the plate at this particular time. But what he ultimately did is, for example, children, for example, CPS, right? People taking your children. Well, number one, you never refer to them as your children. It's one of those three words that we've taught everybody. It's your property. Why? Because no man or woman can ever administrate property without right. Think about
so you say do not refer to them as your children. You refer to them as your property?
As your property. And I'll give you the scenario. What happens is that when these cases are won, when the common law comes in and kicks the crap out of the bar, that's why Carl's been barred. He got arrested last time a few years ago when he came up into Canada again. They locked him up in jail for 12 hours and they sent him back on a plane. And they said, don't ever come back here again. Why? Because he's been beating the crap out of the bar in every court case up here. He took down a case, for example, 4 children were taken from their parents or their property, right? They were split up in 4 different homes across out in Newfoundland there, or Moncton. And what happened was that they were going into court, and Carl was running a talk show for a couple of years prior, and he would have people call in with whatever problem that they were having, and he would talk them and walk them through it. He wasn't charging anybody. The people should have been paying him a lot more for what he was doing. But at the end of the day, he says, I've had enough of this, people cutting me down. He says, I'm going to put this on the record. The next couple that calls me that had their property taken from them, he says, I'm going to get them back. So a woman, Jesse and Jonathan, they called from Canada up here immediately, and they explained, we just had our 4 children taken from us, age 2 to 7, I think it was. This goes back about 5 years now, all because they were growing marijuana in their home and he wasn't storing his guns properly. Okay, that's not a smart thing to do with your kids, but it's no reason to take your children, your property from you, right? So CPS came in, removed their children from it. They were both looking at minimum 18 months in jail. They hadn't seen their kids now for, I think it was 4 months by the time Carl got involved, and they were in court in 10 days. Carl couldn't work with the husband because he was all wrapped up in all this Freeman crap, okay? People go down all these roads. When you understand what the law is and who you are, it's all very simple. That's what Carl always said. How can I charge people for this? It's so bloody simple. So he put 2 sentences into the court. And basically what happened was that this woman on the day of the court, they filed in a couple of days before. He says, I want you to file this into the court. And the first line said, notice, I claim the wrong of trespass, or pardon me, I claim trespass did cause wrong or harm. And what is the trespass? You put it in brackets. Remember, it covers everything. Theft of property, right? The second line was, and he wrote it in like 20 font, I require the immediate restoration of property. And then it said after it in brackets, exhibits 1 through 4. You turn the page over and there's the 4 exhibits, their property, no names, no nothing, their children. So as soon as they put that into the court, and they've been fighting with the courts for years, they all knew when they came in, they were having problems with the court clerk, because once they see people trying to come in and access it properly, they basically flag you and then they intimidate you left and right. So what happened this time is when they put this notice into the paper 2 days before court, the court clerk said, just hang on a second. She went away for a second. She comes back. She says, the judge wants to see in his chambers. Now, how many people hear that happens? They're like, what? They said, okay. So they go into chambers and he's offering them lemonade, cookies, the whole 9 yards, right? Buttering up. He said, listen, he says, I know you're in court here in 2 days. He says, I see this paperwork you're putting into their court, this notice. He said, this claim, he says, are you sure you want to use, he says, because we're all here for the benefit of your children, right? He's just buttering them up, right? And they're like, wow, this is a really nice judge. He's never acted like this before, right? This is great. This is great. He says, well, you might want to change that word from property to children, right? Because it said I required the immediate restoration of my property, right? And it says see exhibits 1 through 4. He says, do you really want to refer to your children as property? Because they had at that time, Scott, there were 5 professionals around each child. You had a doctor, you had a psychiatrist, you had a CPS worker, and there was a couple others, 4, whatever. Long and the short of it is that there was 20 affidavits that were put into that court on the day that they were supposed to go in that was supporting the removal of these children, their property, from their home. So what Carl did, as soon as he put those 2 questions in, that's what the judges key off of his property, because they realize property is a death word to them. They can't administrate another man or woman's property. And you ask any man or woman, when I go into court, when
how'd that turn out? And everybody's going to want to know, how'd that turn out? Everybody's going to want to know what happened.
So what happened is that the judge changed it. They changed it. They went back home. They told Carl, what a wonderful thing this judge did. And as soon as they said we changed the word from property to children, I won't use the words that he used, but he basically said, get your back there right now. And it was a 3-hour round trip. He says, you get back there and you change that. He says, you're never going to see your children again. Carl's a tough SOB. I love him to death. He doesn't mince his words because he understands how simple this is. So they went back and they changed it. Now we go to court. Husband goes in, tried to do his dog and pony show for an hour and a half. He got nowhere. Now Jesse gets up onto the court, who Carl worked with for 10 days, and he hammered her and he told her exactly what to say. After she was put under oath, she stood up and she pointed to who? The woman that was in the courtroom there that was the head of CPS, Child Protection Services. She said, that woman there took my property, trespassed against me. And then she pointed to now the man that was the same judge that was in chambers with a couple of days ago. And she said, I require, that means demand, I require the immediate restoration of my property. Well, the judge started to go, well, don't you want to work? And Carl trained her for that. He said, go right at him again. He says, I require the immediate restoration of my property. Bam. The gavel comes down and the judge basically says, restore this woman's property.